Governments are no longer denying it. The military are no longer denying it. And even mainstream media no longer denies it. They're here and have been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing the truth with you. Welcome to MUFON's What's Up with hosts Katie Griboski, Christopher DePerno, and Katie Cook, exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up? It is Thursday night, and you're listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity and curiosity starts with MUFON. I'm your host, Katie Griboski, State Director of Colorado and Star Team Investigator. Welcome to another great show that brings you 2 hours of the best fresh UFO discussion brought to you by KGRADB.com. As always, the show endorses MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. We've been asking the question and seeking the answers to the most important question out there. Are we alone in the universe? We have got a great guest for you tonight, Debbie Ziegelmeyer. But before we get there, we're going to spend an hour with some UFO news and person of the week. And before we get started with that, I would like to introduce my co-host, Katie Cook. Katie has been investigating all sorts of paranormal and UFO research for many years. Katie, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm
Katie.
So excited. Another show. This is going to be such a good one.
Yeah. And our other co-host, Chris DePerno, became a grandfather for the first time yesterday, and we want to congratulate him. A precious little granddaughter named Charlotte. Chris is going to call her Charlie, so congratulations to Chris on that.
Yeah, that's huge.
That's so exciting.
Chris, I know he's so excited.
Yeah, that's so cool. I have one grandbaby myself, and there's just nothing in the world like that. So
that is not possible. That is not possible.
Yeah, he's going to be 3 actually on December 23rd. So his name's Christian. So yeah, the light of my life. But thank you for that.
I love that.
Anyway, Katie, you always start our show off with something kind of fun. Do you have something for us today?
Let's have a little fun. You know, I like to start it with a UFO meme. I thought this was a pretty funny one right here. For anyone just listening, there's a human man on an examination table and a couple aliens. And the aliens say, "You're smiling? This abduction isn't terrifying?" And the human says, "Honestly, I'm just happy to get out of the house for a bit." I think we can all relate to that one over the last couple of years for sure. I thought that was cute. And now let's talk about our paranormal pop of the week. You know how much I love these. What? It's a white Yeti sandwich. Oh, how cute is that? This is white chocolate mint with a milk chocolate center. How good is that? It's gluten-free, and you can order these at paranormalpops.com. You know, they are just my favorite. Just a great American small family run business, and the pops are so yummy. And there might still be time to get them in time for Christmas, so definitely get on that. And you know, with the holidays in mind, I had gift giving in mind. So Amanda, will you roll this video? You might be wondering why I'm showing you a porcelain plate. Well, it's not just any plate. It's a large-scale UFO invasion threatening the tranquility of traditional blue willow dinner plates. Maybe the aliens just want our grilled cheese. This is Calamity Ware, and they have all kinds of fabulous porcelain gifts. Whether you want a vortex, Sasquatch, dinosaurs, or even zombie poodles. Yep, I said zombie poodles. They've got it all, but of course the UFOs are my favorite. These 10.5-inch diameter porcelain plates are food safe, microwave safe, and dishwasher safe. Designed by Don Moyer and produced at the award-winning Krzysztof Porcelain Workshop in Poland, the rich blue image is created using the inglaze decoration process. You can order these otherworldly plates at calamityware.com. I want my entire kitchen filled with Calamity Ware. How cool is that?
I was just going to say that. Oh my gosh, that's going on my wish list for sure. I love
I just,
those. Both the
it's so
Bigfoot and the UFO one. I love
I
those.
know, and even the dinosaurs and zombie poodles. I'm just like, who dreams this up? I just absolutely love it. All right. So, of course, Chris is not with us this week. He's here in spirit, but he was very busy pulling some stuff together for us. He's got great UFO news as usual and a very cool person of interest this week. I'm super excited about that. But, Amanda, why don't we start with the first news story, please?
Welcome, everybody, to the news of the week, the UFO news of the week. I got a great story for you. Our story number one: Russia threatens criminal charges against married NASA astronaut. Wow. Over baseless claims she drilled a hole in their spacecraft while it was docked in ISS because she broke it up with a crew member and wanted to go home. A tiny hole was discovered in the Suez capsule attached to the ISS back in 2018. You know what, folks? You can't make this up. I'm telling you. It continues to be a very big problem between the U.S. and Russian space relations going on right now. Unbelievable. But Russia has reportedly hinted that they could bring criminal charges against an American astronaut named Serena Anu Chandler, whom they have accused of causing the damage. This is a love triangle in space. Has there ever had a love triangle in space before? This is so crazy, man. Okay, well, here's the astronaut in question. Okay, Serena. And Serena Chandler might be looking at some criminal charges. I don't know. When a millimeter in diameter spot was found causing an air leak in this iconic space station. A pair of cosmonauts subsequently patched the hole and passed it along with their documentation of the damage to officials in the Russian space agency Roscosmos. Cosmo, come on, give me a break. So the mystery over who and what created the hole percolated for the next few years until it erupted into a major, and I mean major, controversy this year with an anonymous high-ranking official with the space agency. And they told Russian media outlet that the American astronaut was to blame for this puzzling damage. The explanation put forward was that astronaut Chandler made the hole with the hopes of returning home early. She was married. I'm going to tell you that right now, okay? But I guess she had a boyfriend too. Sources told the Russian news outlet that the astronaut wanted to leave the orbiting laboratory due to a fight with her boyfriend on board the ISS station. However, astronaut Chandler was married to Jeff Chandler when she was in space, and the two are still married today. Well, that's good. So it is unclear who the boyfriend was. The wild conspiracy theory was understandably met with considerable skepticism from NASA, who dismissed the claim and stressed their full support is for the astronaut. But the Russian Space Agency indicated this week they have completed their investigation into the matter and have turned their findings over to Russian law enforcement officials, which could ultimately result in criminal charges being filed. This new development has led to yet another retribution from NASA, with Administrator Bill Nelson declaring these attacks are false and lack of any credibility. 90210 in space. That's all I can think of. This is nuts. But that's our first story.
Oh my gosh, what is okay? 90210 in space.
That's funny.
First of all, how freaking cute is Chris when he says NASA?
I know.
I love that.
So I wonder how much damage that, I mean, like how many millions of, drilling that hole. It's like, it reminds me of that song. What is that country song, Katie? You know your country music, where she's destroying the car because she's all mad and got in a fight with a boyfriend.
Oh yeah, that's Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood's song.
Before he cheats, yeah, right?
Yeah, that's what it reminds me of. I'm going to show him.
It really looks drilled, right? I mean, it doesn't look like space debris just knocked a little, dent. I mean, it really does look like a drill hole. So do they just carry Fix-A-Flat in space? I mean, it just looks like they just kind of puttied it up. I was like, that's what I do to my tire. What is up with astronaut drama, though? Do you remember it was 2007? Lisa Nowak remember the astronaut that drove like 1,000 miles with a diaper on?
No,
because she wanted to stalk her lover's other lover. That is a wild story.
Oh,
I
wow.
looked into this a little bit because I thought maybe something about going to space can,
Yeah.
mess with a person a little bit. Obviously, some people come back completely fine, but Buzz Aldrin did write in one of his books about it. It can mess with you a little bit,
Right.
So
I think
I
love
don't know.
triangles, here, there, everywhere. It's just everybody's a little wacky when it comes to that. So I don't know.
It can happen,
That's
but
funny.
don't
It can
drill
happen.
holes in
Holes.
your shuttle, people. Well,
No,
Chris
no,
does have a
no.
second news story for us, Amanda.
So let's get on with our second story. Odd UFO filmed by airline passenger. Well, I got to tell you, this is a pretty interesting little film that we got right here for you today. I'm not sure, what to make of this, so I'm going to play it and let you see it. But I want to just say this first. The strange scene was reportedly filmed last month by a person who was in the plane, of course, as he was in the middle of a flight from India to Saudi Arabia. While looking out the window, he spotted something strange alongside the plane and proceeded to film the oddity with his cell phone. A particular white dot can be seen off in the distance. An enhanced version of this photo, now I must say, this is an enhanced version of the photo, or I should say video, seems to suggest that the anomaly is a silver disc-shaped object. Let's see what the enhanced. Skeptics, of course, have offered other explanations for the unidentified flying object, including a balloon or another plane that merely looks out of the ordinary due to how far away it is. I don't know. Similarity, another theory is that the UFO is merely moisture on the window of the airliner. I find that one hard to believe, but you never know. With that in mind, what is your best guess for the nature of this strange object? You take a look at it and you decide. And that's our news for this week.
Well, thank you, Chris. That's great. No, that's pretty far away. It's hard to tell. It's interesting how it's really dark, like black on the left side, and then really light. It almost looks box shaped from time to time, like this. But could it be another plane? What do you think, Katie?
Well, we've all had the experience, I think. I know I definitely have, of being on a plane and you look out the window and you're like, oh my God, what is that giant, shiny orb? And then, a second later you realize it's sun reflecting off another plane. I mean, that can certainly happen, but I feel like that went on a little bit long if it
Mhm.
was just that. And the whole moisture on the window thing. I mean, I'm no expert, but the plane's going along like this. And I feel like that object was actually kind of speeding ahead of the plane a little bit. I would think a plane going this way, moisture on the window would be going the other way. So I that doesn't really ring true to me. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'd like to, have some fun with that video and manipulate it and see
Yeah,
if
that
we
would be
can
fun. So
figure
that
out
was my
more.
question, like which way was it going? But it appeared to be moving. The plane was going this way and the object was moving. Yeah.
I think
Right.
yeah,
So
the object was kind of moving just ahead of the plane, like the
yeah, it
same
looked like
direction,
it.
just and kind of going a little bit faster, which does seem like it could be another plane. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
That one's
I don't
definitely
know.
interesting.
Interesting.
But thank
Yeah.
you, Chris, for getting those for us. He also found our person of interest for the week, one of my favorite people that I ever got to meet. And Katie G, I know you got to meet this guy too. Really important in the field of ufology. We'll talk about him on the other side of the video, but
Okay.
why don't we go ahead and run that, Amanda?
Welcome to our person of interest. This week, our person of interest is Dr. Edgar D. Mitchell, a United States naval officer, an aviator, test pilot, engineer, ufologist, and astronaut. Also, he's the sixth man to walk on the moon. What an amazing man Dr. Mitchell was. Dr. Mitchell was commissioned as an ensign in the United States Navy. He was assigned to Patrol Squadron 29, flying land-based patrol planes. He then went on to carrier-based jets. He then went on to serve as an astronaut, lunar pilot on Apollo 14, landing on the moon with Alan Shepard. They stayed on the moon for 33 hours and conducted all kinds of experiments. On the topic of UFOs, Dr. Mitchell publicly expressed his opinions that many of the thousands of UFOs recorded since the 1940s belong to visitors from other planets. Dr. Mitchell discussed meeting with officials from other countries who claimed to have had personal encounters with extraterrestrials. He offered his opinion that the evidence for such alien contact was very strong and classified by these governments. Who was covering up these visitations and the existence of alien beings? He further claimed that UFOs had provided engineering secrets that were helpful to the U.S. government. In 2004, he stated that a cabal of insiders in the U.S. government were studying recovered alien bodies and that this group had stopped briefing U.S. presidents after John F. Kennedy. Dr. Mitchell said, "We all know the UFOs are real. Now the question is, where do they come from?" Yeah, I'd like to know too. I'd like to play this short video with Dr. Mitchell talking about UFOs and see what you think.
Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who had grown up around Roswell, was an aerospace insider with deep Pentagon connections. He became convinced there were UFO secrets concealed from normal government channels.
Well, if the accounts are to be believed, yes, there have been ET visitation, there have been crashed craft, there have been material and bodies recovered, and there is some group of people somewhere that may or may not be associated with government at this point, but certainly were at one time, that have this knowledge.
Since completing his half-million-mile trip to the moon and back 25 years ago, Edgar Mitchell has been on an intensive inner voyage of discovery. He's written a book about his experiences titled The Way of the Explorer. In it, he discusses his controversial views about the origin of consciousness and the power of the mind. He also reveals his belief that we're not alone in the universe.
Life evolved everywhere in the universe, that the physical conditions were sufficient or benign enough to allow life to evolve. And that means it's ubiquitous in the universe, not just on our little segment of the universe like we previously thought, both in science and in religion.
Ironically, the man who cruised the stars grew up in Roswell, New Mexico, and in his book, Mitchell asserts that what crashed there in 1947 isn't at all what the Air Force insists it is. He believes there are alien craft and creatures.
Well, I'll start out by saying I have no firsthand experience with UFO and alien business, but in recent years I have been in contact with people within government, more than one government, other than ours, whose official duties while they were in government did bring them into contact with information and events that they claim are clearly first-hand encounters with UFOs, extraterrestrials, and so forth. And I find them very credible. They are good military people, like myself. They are patriotic government citizens of sound mind, of the level of rather senior military officers and senior government officials. They've had these experiences, they claim they're real, and I tend to believe them.
Very little people know this, but while on the moon, Dr. Mitchell conducted his own remote viewing experiment without the approval of NASA. Dr. Mitchell had worked with a psychic sending information to him. This experiment proved to be highly successful. Dr. Mitchell, a great man, a hero, UFO expert, and a man in the know. Check the evidence and you decide. And that, folks, is my person of interest this week.
Big thumbs up, right?
Yep. super nice guy too. I mean, I don't know him well. I just got my picture taken with him. Hey, talk to him for just a minute or two, but wow, impressive man.
Yeah, I got to meet him one time at the X conference up in DC, really big UFO conference, and he was the keynote speaker. And I mean, just a life-changing speech to hear him talk about his passion for disclosure and consciousness and thinking big picture about all of this. I mean, just like fist pounding on the podium, like, come on, people, this is real. And I was just like, thank you so much for all that you've done for our country and for space exploration and for consciousness and for ufology. Just
that was the point in the video where my ears perked up too, when he mentioned, the power of our minds, the power of our intentions and our consciousness. And I really do feel that some of the stuff that people I'm just saying the powers at will, powers that be, want to keep suppressed from us. Because if people realize the power of their own strengths in their own mind, just think what we would do, think what we can do together. So I found that I was like, ooh, yeah, that's super interesting to me, that whole side of things.
Oh, yes.
So, really cool. Really good person of the week. Thanks, Chris, for that. Yeah. Anyway, so for chapter highlights this week, I put together a little video. I highlighted a few chapters. They have guest speakers coming up. And I also, like I promised last week, I'm going to share international websites. But before we get there, I ran across on Facebook actually this morning, and it's not in the video, so I wanted to give a shout out to Minnesota MUFON. On December 11th, they have an online meeting. Laird Scranton, and the time on it, I believe you can just go to Minnesota MUFON Facebook, and there's all different times. They have their whole lineup for that. But if anybody's interested on that, seek that out. So Amanda, if you want to just run chapter news video, that would be great. Thank you. Upcoming MUFON meetings, December 9th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Missouri MUFON will be showing a presentation on crop circles. Register online. December 11th from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at the Arizona Heritage Center, Phoenix MUFON welcomes Dr. Bruce Cornett. December 11th from 11 to 1 Pacific Time on Zoom, Rockland presents Dave Marler. December 15th, 7:40, Orange County will be streaming Lester Velez on Unknown Others. Oklahoma will be streaming on Zoom December 18th from 2 to 4 p.m. Colorado MUFON December meeting was canceled, but January 8th, we will present Don Schmidt in Centennial, Colorado from 1 to 4 p.m. Mountain Time. International chapter websites. To translate to English, Microsoft Edge is your best bet. UFO Brazil at ufo.com.br. MUFON Canada at mufoncanada.com. MUFON France at mufonfrance.fr. MUFON Israel at mufonisrael.com. MUFON Italy at mufon.emio.web.it. MUFON Latvia at ufo.lv. MUFON Korea at email 0865.wixsite.com/MUFON Korea. And lastly, MUFON Sweden at mufonsweden.se. Hope you all enjoy. They're all excellent sites. There you go. Check them out.
I love it.
All those international sites actually are really well done, and they're really interesting. It took me a little while to figure out how to translate it all to English, but once I did, man, the content in those are content heavy, so much research, so many references. So I really encourage, if you can, to go check those out. Check out those international websites. They're chock full of information. They're great. So,
very cool. And I encourage us to go visit every single one of them. Could we do that?
Yeah.
Can we get it in the budget to do our show from all those different places and catch up with those local chapters around the world?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Let's do that. Okay, I'm
A
going to
girl
make that
can
happen.
dream. A girl can dream.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up, let's catch up with MUFON ERT. This week we have George Medich. George is a former Yankees pitcher. After his baseball career, he did an orthopedic residency at the University of Pittsburgh, followed by a sports medicine fellowship in Birmingham. He's the assistant director of experiencer research for MUFON, and he's with us now as for a reminder on what exactly it is that the ERT do and how they can potentially help people. Amanda, can you roll that?
Hi, everybody. This is George Medich. I'm the assistant director for the MUFON Experiencer Resource Team. And we're a group of MUFON field investigators who deal with people who have had contact with non-human entities. We have a questionnaire on the MUFON website that's called the Experiencer Questionnaire. It has 30 questions, and people will go on the website, fill this out. The questionnaires get sent to me and I distribute them to our ERT investigators. We currently have 45 people who answer these questionnaires. Are spread out all over the country. We have 2 people in France and 4 people in Canada, and the rest are in the United States. But we get questionnaires from all over the world. For example, last week I had one from Brazil. The week before that, I had one from China. So we're always kind of surprised to get these questionnaires, but we do get them from all over. What happens is we talk to the people who fill out these questionnaires, and we kind of get what their story is. And from that, we can pretty much determine what it is they need from us. Most of the time, the people that we talk to just want somebody to listen to them in a non-judgmental fashion and tell them that they're not crazy and imagining all these things. We've heard the similar story so often that it's beyond the possibility that a bunch of people got together and made all this stuff up. So we're very convinced that what they're telling us is true. Of course, some are more true than others, but that's what we do. And then if somebody's for example, has a period of lost time and they want to retrieve that memory, you might hook them up with a vetted hypnotherapist in their area. We have a panel of vetted hypnotherapists that work with us throughout the country. We don't have one in every state, but we're pretty well covered. Our field investigators in the ERT are, like I said, are all credentialed field investigators and been at this for a long time. We're still looking for more. We don't have representation in every state, and it's our goal to eventually have a ERT representative in every state. Our busiest state by far is California. They probably represent 20% of the number of questionnaires that we get every year. The ERT got started, I believe, back in 2011 when the chief executive officer of MUFON contacted Kathy Marden and asked her to create a panel or a situation whereby they could respond to people who had concerns about abduction. She and a fellow named Craig Lang, who's now deceased, Craig was from Minnesota, started up the ERT, and what they did was they responded to all the requests for information about abductions. And then over the course of time, this thing has grown. In 2014, Kathy asked me to join the ERT, and later on that year, she made me the assistant director, which I've been since 2015. Kathy has since become an emeritus member of the ERT. She's still here in spirit and in person, but our new director is Gwen Farrell, and we're always evolving. We're developing, for example, we're going to start a mentorship program for some of our newer members, and we have an orientation procedure that everybody goes through when they join, and kind of give them instruction and tell them what to do, what not to do, what to look for, when to put your antennas up, and then we turn them loose. There are field workers, and they're the ones that interact with the people who fill out these questionnaires. As you can imagine, we've heard all kinds of stories through the years. Some are quite believable, some are quite not believable, and it runs the gamut. I'm sure we get a bell-shaped curve with that kind of population that we deal with. But we're here to help. We're a helping organization. We're not an investigative body. We try to help people resolve the emotional stress that was encountered during their abductions, and we think we do a pretty good job with it. Everybody seems to like what they do. All the members of the ERT seem to like what they do, and I think we've been helpful in most cases. So we're kind of proud of our little group of people. We're very collegial. We have monthly Zoom meetings, and sometimes we'll have guest speakers come in and talk to us. For example, a couple months ago, we had Richard Nolan come in and talk to us, and then we had Daryl Sims and Preston Dennett. So we get some high-powered speakers to come in and talk to us. We don't have any textbooks, so we learn by talking to the people who've had these encounters, and we've developed quite an experience in dealing with these people. And that basically is the ERT. That's what we do, and that's who we are. Yeah, when I retired from medicine, I was still very interested in astronomy, which has always been kind of my avocation. So I actually went back to my university, University of Pittsburgh, and audited some astrophysics courses. And then I was flipping through the internet one day and ran across this organization named MUFON. Now, I'd never heard of MUFON, but I was always interested in UFOs. From the time I was in high school, I always believed that they were real, that I didn't think that all this stuff was a figment of everybody's imagination. So I joined MUFON, studied the field investigator's manual, took the test, became a field investigator, and started doing sighting reports for John Ventry, who was the Pennsylvania State Director at that time. And I'd been doing that for 3 or 4 years when Kathy Martin called me and asked me to join the ERT. And I was very happy to do that, because for me, the payoff isn't the lights in the sky, it's the people driving them. And that's what I was really interested in, was, trying to get contact with these off-world entities. And we're probably as close as anybody can get to doing that on a regular basis here in the ERT.
I think what the ERT, they are just becoming an invaluable asset to MUFON. I think their work is so important and so valuable to so many. And I just want to give a quick shout out. I think having an ERT representative in every state is a great goal to have. And Colorado just got their first ERT member, Anniversary Feinstein. So congratulations, Anniversary. And what really impressed me when she became and applied to be a ERT, they really go through the process. I mean, they vet these members very well. And it has to be a unanimous decision to be put on ERT. And I had no idea it was such a process. And so congratulations to Anniversary. And I just can't thank them enough. It's such important work.
It really is. And what a great name.
Anniversary. Yeah,
I love that. Well, yeah. And like George said, they listen. That's the biggest thing you need when you're an experiencer, and you might be frightened to tell other people, or maybe you've told other people and they want to believe you, but this is out of their wheelhouse. You just need someone to listen. And he touched on something too. He said, yeah, it might sound unbelievable. It might sound crazy until you get so many people telling you the same thing. Right. And then, is it just a figment of their imagination? Well, that would be one hell of a mass delusion, right?
Exactly. And collecting all those commonalities too.
Exactly. And they can really chart it and really start to build this big picture. So like you said, it's just invaluable what they do. And we're really lucky to have them. And yes, great goal. Let's get one in every state if possible.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, let's shift gears over to Case of the Week. All right, so for this week's Case of the Week, we have case number 119255. This originally started as a Category 3 case and was moved down to a Category 1 case, which, but anyway, it took place November 7th, 2021, 4:45 p.m. It's in Louisiana. This was a 10-minute encounter. There were 2 witnesses. There was no wind. It was very calm that day, 65 degrees outside. This was observed in the western sky. There were a couple military bases close by. There was an Air Force base, but it was decommissioned in 1994. And there's Fort Polk Army Base nearby, and it is active. This case was closed as an unknown UAV. And I'll run the video here in a minute, but before I do, let me just read to you the description. Standing in my backyard, nephew looks into the sky and was like, "What in the world is that?" I looked up and saw 2 UFOs hovering in the sky. They were side by side, round, dark, metallic objects. I immediately took my phone out, which is an iPhone 12 Pro Max, and recorded 8 total minutes of these objects in 4K video and a total of 3 videos. I'll be sharing just one of those. At first, they were close by and then moved a ways apart and then back close together before heading west towards Fort Polk Military Base. During the event, a passenger jet flew right underneath the 2 UFOs. In the video, you can clearly tell these things aren't jets or planes or drones or anything like that. They definitely weren't stars because of the time of day. They weren't satellites or drones. I have a star and satellite tracker app on my phone and nothing showed up on my app. Also, I served 6 years in the Army and 18 months in combat in Baghdad, Iraq from 2008 to 2010. I know what drones look like. Let's see. I know what drones look like. The event happened at 4:45 p.m., a day after daylight savings times changed. The object at points were glowing bright in the sky, almost like stars. The sun was just starting to go down, so I'm sure the objects were some kind of dark metallic reflective metal because the sun was reflecting off of them. That's the only reason we saw them, was because of how bright they were shining. Other than that, they just looked like black balls hovering in the sky. They looked to be rotating at times. I always try to logically explain things or debunk things before assuming it's a UFO or UAP. Okay, so Amanda, if you want to roll the video, please.
You see that?
Dude, the UFOs.
What? You don't see that right there?
They are not moving.
And the UFO is a drone. That's what I was thinking was drone. And a drone wouldn't fly with another one beside it. No, but you see how it like gets brighter and just talked about it. See, y'all, they came too early for stars. Look at that plane right there. Let's see. No, let's see. Let's see. Oh yeah. Perfect tip.
There is a plane.
Going straight to it. Perfect tip. That plane's headed straight to it.
Look at that.
Did it cross under it? No, so you tripping, man. No, did the plane go under or over it is what I'm saying. But y'all know that's the star that you mainly see right there. See this one that ain't moved none? Everybody say it's a star. That ain't a star, bro.
No.
You can watch it gleam off the sun, dude. But I'm saying that's a star. Stars don't gleam like that. I see it doing that, but that's not what stars do. Star, bro. That's what people say though. Now look, now the light gone. Light getting smaller. Do y'all see the black around the star every time it gets smaller? Look at the one on the right, dude. Or stare at the one on the right. Flicker, you can see black around it, boy. Y'all think I'm playing. It's not a star, bro. It's not even.
It's a ball, dude.
I never. Look, flicker. Now watch the black around it on the one on the right. A drone.
That's not drones.
Drones can't fly that high and stay there down still, triple. Depth of perception, though.
So I did cut that and chop it. That's why it looks a little choppy in that video, because I took out, first of all, the profanity, because they were like, what the beep? And so I kind of cleaned up the audio a little bit. And also that particular video was like 4 minutes long. And then they had 2 others too. So they captured this for quite a long time. And like I said, there was no wind. So they were, appeared not to be really moving much at all, maybe moving away. Decide for yourself. An interesting case. I don't know if it had something to do with the Army base nearby or what these were. What do you think, Katie?
Well, yeah, I do think it's cool that there's a military base nearby. And this guy said he served in the Army as well.
Mm-hmm.
So should be pretty familiar with flying things. Was there a close-up picture? Did we have?
Oh, yeah, we did have a zoom in. I zoomed in with the plane right there.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
I love that the plane went in front of it. I mean, that just helps us. Again, it's not like we're going to know exactly how far away this thing was, but at least that gives us, and having the trees in the shot. I mean, just if anybody's watching, if you ever film anything in the sky, just do everything you can to give us some scale.
Right.
That's really important. And I love that he provided so many details, but I don't know. I have
No.
no idea what this is, but he, probably a pretty credible witness. Kind of wish you had
Right.
left all the profanity in. No, I'm kidding. How
This
did
is an
they
all
get
ages show.
banned? We never heard from
Right.
them again. No, that is a really interesting case, though. So,
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, Chris got a What's Up Extra for us this week.
good.
Many of you are familiar with the Pascagoula UFO case, very, very famous one. On October 11th, 1973, Calvin Parker and Chris Hickson said they were fishing when they spotted a UFO. They said they were ultimately taken aboard a craft and then brought back. It's a really, really famous case. And Philip Mansell interviewed Calvin Parker for us. And here's some of that interview now.
Awesome.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Philip Mansell. I'm a long-running UFO researcher here in the UK. I'm also an author in my own right. But in 2015, I started my own little publishing concern called Flying Disc Press. And in 2018, one of the cases I'd long since had an interest in was the events at Pascagoula in October of 1973. Those events involved two gentlemen, one by the name of Calvin Parker, and the other Charles Hickson. Now, Mr. Hickson had passed away in 2011, but I got the rights, to republish his book that he wrote with a chap called William Mendez and was published in 1983. So I thought it would be nice to go with the republishing of this book to try and find Mr. Parker, Calvin Parker, just to get a brief interview and nothing more. So it took me a number of months, but I managed to track Calvin down. He's still living in Mississippi with his wife, Waynette. And after a couple of phone calls and exchange of emails, we went from not just an interview, but to publishing two books by Calvin. He told his own story for the first time in full in the first book. Calvin, it was called Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, My Story by Calvin Parker. That was followed up by another book, Pascagoula, The Story Continues. And I'd like to introduce to a man who's now become my friend, and not just, another of the authors that I have on my list. And that's Calvin Parker over in Mississippi.
Hey, Philip. How y'all doing? It's been a great honor to work with Philip on this. We was a struggle to get together on all this, but we got some fine books out. Philip and Irene Scott's in the process of doing a new book on the witnesses and everything on this, which I'm really excited about to read here. And of course, I got the Pascagoula, The Closest Encounter, my story about the old big ugly alien that we are talking about. And damn, he is ugly. But anyhow, it's an honor to be on the show with Philip. And thank you, Chris, for having us all.
Just tell people, very quickly, Calvin, what happened to you and Charlie that night on October the 11th, 1973, while you were fishing on the Pascagoula River?
Well, I kind of summed it down real short like. I got hired, fired, abducted, and a physical all in the same day. We got abducted by, I think it's what was aliens. I still don't know at this point what it really was, but I'm pretty sure it was life from another planet. And this has been going on. And of course, Philip and I got together and he taught me into doing a book for my legacy. And I really didn't want to do one to start with, but the more I talked to Philip, the better sense it made. Because I got tired of telling the press what they wanted to hear than them changing it. And Philip told me, he said, if you put it in writing, they can't change it. And he's been right. This is one of the best things that's ever happened to me. And I sure appreciate him and his friendship for this. He's been a great publisher. He's been more than fair with me. He's a hustler. And that's one thing I don't do is hustle too much. But I've enjoyed it. This has opened up a new world to me, going to conferences and talking about this deal. And I love to talk about it. The story's so long, it takes about an hour or two to really get into it. So, or
well, I'll just interject there. When Calvin calls me a hustler, what he means by that, when Calvin went public with his book, just some local publicity, and the local publicity, unlike what happened in 1973, now treated Calvin with respect, didn't make any fun of him, and as a result, it led to other people coming forward and saying, you know what, Philip, you know, that night in October 1973, you know, I too saw something. And we've been blessed to have the assistance of a lady who lives in Ohio in the United States, Dr. Irina Scott, who has worked hand in glove with us. We also were assisted by MUFON and one of their gentlemen by the name of Douglas Wilson. And more witnesses, even to the last, you know, couple of months, have come forward and reported what happened to them. We've also found documentation and photographs that, you know, surprised us all.
Oh, it's documented. It's as you said, it's my legacy. And you said this final book coming up next year. Who knows where the big ugly ones are going after that? I mean, we could go on screen. We got a documentary probably coming up. It just continues. Every time Philip and I think that it's over with, something else happens.
Big ugly. How do you like that?
Yeah, I love Calvin.
Oh,
shout out to Doug for working on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they've stuck to their story all these years, and I just love that more people finally came forward. There was a lady named Maria Blair. This is according to WLOX.com. 45 years later, that's Maria Blair hugging Calvin there. She decided to come forward and say, you know, I can validate this story. I saw that UFO that night all those years ago, but I didn't come forward. I was scared of being labeled crazy. And I'm so happy for them that more and more people were able to come forward. It's a really famous case, fascinating case.
Yeah, absolutely. And consistent, like you said, it's just, you know, they have stuck in that video of them right after the incident where they go to the police station and the camera's recording them unbeknownst to them. And, you know, if they were making this stuff up, you know, no, this is just, this is one of my favorite abduction cases out there. So
yeah,
good. So good.
It's a really good one.
Right.
Well, I've got a book recommendation for us this week. Talk about someone who knows a thing or two about abductions. So I think this is one that many of our viewers who are experiencers will really find useful and meaningful if they don't already have a copy. It is Kathleen Martin's What to Do When You've Been Abducted. George Medich mentioned Kathleen a moment ago. She has contributed so much to MUFON and ufology in general. Kathleen, of course, headed up the MUFON Experiencer resource team before Gwen Farrell. She's a beautiful woman there. Love that smile. She's been a UFO researcher for many, many years and has authored multiple books, including some with the late, great Stanton Friedman. He was so wonderful. And that picture, by the way, was taken by Nate Arizona, great photographer. Kathleen is the niece of Betty and Barney Hill, in case you guys didn't know that, two of the most famous UFO abductees in history. Oh, that's actually the road marker there, supposedly from where they were abducted. So ufology has literally been in Kathleen's life, her whole life. And I caught up with Kathleen a couple of years ago at a conference, and we had a chance to talk about the book, and I thought you guys might enjoy hearing directly from her about the book. Amanda, can you roll that?
What is an abduction? What is a contact experience? And using the umbrella term experiencer, which was originally coined by Dr. John Mack. And I think it's a very, very good word because it runs the spectrum.
Do you think age is a factor? I feel like typically it happens in the more fertile years. If this is a genetic experiment, Typically, when people get older, are they more likely to be left alone?
They come back less frequently when people grow older. In our study, we discovered that 75% of the 516 experiencers were taken for the first time when they were less than 20 years old. About 37% when they were less than 5. So they've been taken throughout their lifetime, taken more frequently during the fertile years, but still are visited. And as people grow older and lose their fear and begin to understand what's occurring in their lives, they can receive information and gain a much greater understanding than they had earlier.
Yeah.
And hopefully lose some of that fear that they had when they were younger. So many people have tried to tell their friends, their family, and they're laughed at, they're criticized, they're told to see a psychiatrist, they're asked, what have you been drinking? And it's very hurtful. And people have to work through that. They have to have a kind, non-judgmental person that can begin that process with them. And the more you learn, the more you know about this, the less fearful you become. Now, the studies that we have done have given us a lot of information about positive changes in experiencers. So, that's one thing.
What can you just give me a couple examples while we're on that positive?
I'd be happy to. Experiencers tend to feel that they've become more intelligent than they were prior to their first experience. They become psychic or intuitive. They develop empathic abilities where they can sense the emotions and sometimes the physical health of other individuals. They can communicate telepathically. Many, and I'm just talking about the greatest percentage overall. Most of these individuals who have who fit into the UFO abduction syndrome category have not had just normal sleep paralysis. They've had that, but they've also been awake when these entities entered their bedroom and then became paralyzed. So there's a lot of conscious recall there too, and it's generational. They do have higher than average Rh negative blood in the general population. It's about 15%. In our experiencer survey, it was 33%. So there were several characteristics.
There's probably a lot in your book that would help an experiencer's spouse.
Yes, I think that book is written for the general population too, for anyone who was interested in this phenomena, and also for experiencers. It is a comprehensive handbook, and there is a worksheet at the end of each chapter to help people to work through all of their emotions, to answer the questions. There's so much information that we've packed into that book.
Oh my gosh. First of all, Katie, I could watch that for a couple hours. We could do a whole show on this topic. I mean, Kathleen, her work is incredible. It falls so much in line, and so much of what she talks about is what Dr. Leo Sprinkle, who we just lost recently, his work showed the same thing. So this topic is near and dear to my heart, and that is a great interview. How long was that interview that you did?
Oh gosh, I talked to her for over an hour. So I if you want, I'll pull other snippets from that and we can include them from week to week. I mean, like you said, she's a girl after my own heart too. She really gets the big picture. Yeah, she was really great to talk to. Hopefully we'll have her on and get to talk to her on this show.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll get Kathleen on. But yeah, I would love for you to share more of that interview, because I find that there's so many points to that. Just the the psychic stuff that seems to come up, and the change of being a fearful situation or an experience into one that people feel motivated and driven. And there's just so many parts to that we can dive deep into, you know.
Yeah.
So it's incredible work. And
Something
just
we
like,
can both relate to, right? I mean, and she really talks a lot in the book about how, as you and I have discussed, that there can be that paranormal connection. I don't think there's any such thing as a real cut and dry, simple UFO abduction, and she really does go into that a lot. And I hope you and I can talk more in depth in upcoming episodes just about, you know, how we even got drawn into this field. You know, people might be curious, you know, because you and I both have had a lot of experiences, and yeah, while I definitely will keep some of it private because still have kids at home, and you know,
Right.
I think it's a lot to ask other family members to carry that story as well. But yeah, this has been a lifelong interest for me. I always say I didn't pick the paranormal picked me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know that I even really had a choice. I think you probably feel the same way.
Right. Just you know, if you're comfortable sharing, I mean, did this have a generational you know, impact in your family?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I'll only ever really be able to talk about the impact it's had on me because I have to be careful not to tell anyone else's stories. But I think
Right.
it's still going on.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, I think I'm an experiencer, and again, we'll talk a little bit more. But I don't mean to be all cryptic. It's just we're coming up on the break, and you know, I think I'm an
Right.
experiencer. Let's go to break.
Yeah.
I don't mean to be
Right.
like that, but
Tease,
but
tease.
yeah, yeah, I'm such a tease. But yeah, I
Right.
think, you know, we'll talk a little bit more in the coming weeks and let people get to know us a little bit more. But I can tell you, we're not alone. And as far as
That's
I'm
for sure.
concerned, I live in a post-disclosure reality. You know, there's no going back for me. So
Right. I'm right there with you, Katie. So we are close to a break here. Coming up next, we have our special guest, Debbie Ziegelmeyer, whom I'm thrilled to have on. We had so much fun at the symposium together, woohoo, hanging out. And Debbie is our underwater expert. And I mean, she is the master at this. So I'm excited to get Debbie on here. It's going to be a great conversation. So stay tuned and hang in there through the break.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
All right. All right, Amanda, it is time. So our guest tonight is Debbie Ziegelmeyer. Debbie is on the MUFON Board of Directors, Missouri MUFON State Director, MUFON Star Team Investigator, MUFON Benefactor, founder of the MUFON's dive team. Debbie is a master diver and instructor. If I were to list all her diving credentials, we'd be here for a long time because she has so many. Oh my goodness, she is the master. Debbie's other interests include archaeology and astronomy. She worked on 2 NBC projects, Roswell Crash, Startling New Evidence, who published her personal dig diaries and experiences in a book entitled Roswell Dig Diaries, and on the episode of UFO Hunters entitled Roswell Revisited. She has been an independent investigator for over 15 years, spent over 10 years partnered with her brother Chuck Sukowski, reinvestigating the Roswell, New Mexico incident of 1947, and worked with Ted Phillips' group for 2 years investigating and researching Marley Woods. These are 2 topics, the Roswell and the Marley, I would like to touch on later in the show. I think for the majority, we'd like to focus on the underwater sightings since she's our expert on that, but both of those things intrigue me. She's been a MUFON field investigator for over 10 years, investigating over 1,000 UFO reports. Debbie and her husband Wayne own multiple businesses and are the founders of World of Water Foundation, which is dedicated to giving veterans and children with special needs the chance to experience scuba diving and other water-related sports. And Debbie, welcome to the show. And I would really like to start with that. I mean, what an incredible thing to do, your World of Water Foundation. Oh my gosh, that's incredible that you do that work. So thank you for that. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. Actually, the bio that you read's a little bit old. I've been an investigator since 2001 for MUFON, so I've actually been around 20 years. World of Water Foundation. What we decided to do was originally we formed the foundation so we could help veterans and disabled children have the experience of scuba diving. But what we found out, unfortunately, with the veterans is a lot of the times when you have a disabled veteran, you've got pressure injury to the ears. And we had a lot of problems finding people who could actually go at any type of depth, and we weren't causing more problems for them. So we began focusing more on children. And that was really rewarding. My son-in-law, Roger Meyer, he's a firefighter for Firehouse 1. He was a Firehouse 11 and Firehouse 1 now in the St. Louis area. And our volunteers were firefighters. So they had great guys there in St. Louis. My daughter also was a firefighter. She's for Olivet. She's a firefighter, Olivet, Missouri. So that's what we decided to do. We gave the chance to a lot of little children to have the experience of diving. It was in the pool. It was very rewarding. Wish we could keep it up more, but a lot of that had to stop along with, unfortunately, with all this COVID.
Yeah, unfortunately. Wow. Thank you for doing all that. So cool.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, thank you for being with us tonight. Thank you for everything you do for ufology. I got to meet you at the symposium, and unfortunately where your lecture was, you got like the shortest length lecture, and I was really upset because I was like, I need at least another hour of this. So I was just so thrilled that you could join us here. One thing I'd love to bring right up is the fact that sightings over and in the water, it's not a new thing. It's not something that's just started since we have the technology and cameras and everything to pick it up. You actually have ancient evidence that you talk about in your book. Can you touch on some of that?
The oldest sighting I think I found was, I found as far as logged was 1067, and that was a ball of fire that was kind of bouncing up and down on the horizon of an ocean, logged by a sailor, and then it moved around the sky and then eventually went back up into the sky and left. And so it definitely wasn't any type of a meteor coming down. A Columbus also, that's one of the most famous ones. It was 1492 that I think it was he was heading toward the Bahamas to come to the Americas, and about 10 o'clock at night It was October of 1492 that he and his son Ferdinand saw this candle that was bouncing up and down on the horizon. And they were about 10 miles or so out from land. And they watched this thing for quite a while, and then it eventually just disappeared. I started doing some research on log sightings, and between 1948 and 1968, it was just amazing. I mean, I have a whole chapter in my book on just sightings that were from military ships and fishing vessels and cargo ships. Oh, yeah, there it is. I put them on a map. Pine Bush, New York has a MUFON museum. They have actually a UFO paranormal museum, and MUFON has a big section there. There's over 300 dots, and some of the dots could be 10, 15 dots high. So I only put one dot per place. But I was just amazed at the research that I did, how much I found. And now this is just oceans and seas also. This isn't the land. And these were all sightings that were documented at sea. A lot of them, if you look in the book, they'll say, well, star-like or planet or satellite. Well, when I found this Excel document, it was given, just handed it to me years ago. But when I researched the document, the description, it may say satellite or star. Some of them actually say UFO, but they had to put some kind of a physical description to their best knowledge. So it's like if you see, a car, you're going, well, it's a car. If you see something going by, I mean, whether or not that's what it is, it was their best description for what they thought that they saw, for lack of nothing else, because a lot of them were unknown. Well, you have these, the lookouts on these ships have been, that's what they do, and they're out for at least sometimes 3 months. So they know what's in the sky, they know about planets, they know what they're looking for, and when they see something out of the ordinary, that's when it's documented. So it doesn't necessarily mean, well, these guys didn't know what they saw, it must have been a satellite. Not necessarily. They felt the need that they had to actually turn this in as a report of something unknown.
Right. That map there that you showed, I mean, it looks to me that there's a lot of clusters up on that map. And I know there's rumors of like underwater bases under our oceans. And in particular, they talk about an underwater base near Malibu. What is your comment on that? What do you think about that theory?
Oh, that's great. I lived in California for a couple of years. So my family on my mother's side, a lot of them are still out there. I've been to Catalina Island. I never saw anything while I was going out to Catalina Island, but I've been researching that. I have a chapter in my book that talks about a lot of sightings from between Malibu and Catalina Island. And also, I think Preston Dennett. In fact, I'm sure Preston Dennett has a book out just on Catalina Island as well. I was out visiting a few months ago, back in May, and I went to an area, an art studio, and I was looking at art, and I got to speak to some of the ladies that are right there. This is right on the ocean, right off of Laguna Beach. And I said, you're right here in the ocean at night in the studio. Have you ever seen anything? And both of these sales ladies said, oh, absolutely. They had seen balls of light dancing off into the ocean, headed toward Catalina. This has just been May of this year. There are just numerous sightings. I have, like I said, family members out there that have physically worked on some of these reports with MUFON because they lived in the area at the time. My sister lived in Dana Point and was getting a lot of these cases. Just so much. I think there is something. I think there might still be something to that anomaly off of Malibu. There was another one that one of our section directors, Lynn Mann, found almost the identical same thing off of Japan. And I also believe there's some type of a base that may be off Catalina Island, pretty deep in the water. Something, whether or not it's a base or an access point. There's definitely something going on in Catalina. Also, Puerto Rico, oh my gosh, so many sightings in and around Puerto Rico.
Yeah. Oh, God, I love Catalina Island so much. I mean, any excuse to go out there, I'll just be like, I need to go UFO watching, so I just need to go back to Catalina. I mean, can you get any sense? I was trying to look at that map there. I mean, it's all over the globe. I'm just trying to figure out if there's any similarities, certain bodies of water, how close they are to land, certain temperatures, certain continents. I mean, just trying to paint a picture of if there's anything you've been able to string together and say, well, yeah, they're just more likely to be in these places other than, a military base nearby or something.
I think a lot of it has to do with where our trenches are. We have some pretty deep trenches, one off of Catalina Island in the Caribbean, a couple miles or so deep, but we have trenches off of Catalina Island off of Puerto Rico. That has a lot, I believe, to do with it. Just areas where deep water trenches are where we aren't able to access. So that may or may not. It doesn't really have anything to do with water temperature because you have as many sightings in the Catalina area as you have, which the water temperature there is about 58 degrees, as you have in the Caribbean, which when I've been diving over there and some of the water temps are 91 degrees. So I don't think water temperature has anything to do with it at all. And it might just be the fact that it's an area where there's some type of a deep trench.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a pattern.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Just recently, I think Tucker Carlson did a report on a 2019 triangle event that Tim McMillan actually was on top of. This triangle with the white lights on the corners just shoots up out of the water. I mean, maybe it was down in one of these trenches that you talk about, shoots up, takes off at a 90-degree angle. They also mentioned in that clip that these underwater craft can get upwards of 100 knots underwater. I mean, can you talk about some of these speeds that they're recording under there? And they mentioned that Russia had a drone, underwater drone. They called it the Canyon drone, and it wasn't near as fast. I mean, we don't have anything that goes that fast. So can you talk about maybe speeds or things that are seen underwater?
Well, the speeds, anyone who knows Mark D'Antonio's heard the story that when he was in a nuclear sub and down in sonar and saw a fast mover, what he referred to as a fast mover going by. It was something that obviously wasn't normal. I found a lot of reports too that reports basically from Russia. It's hard to really get reports from the United States because the first thing when Mark said that he saw the fast mover going across the sonar screen, that the sonar operator was told by the XO to just, to go on ahead and log it and stow it away. But through Freedom of Information Acts, a lot of those were released in Russia, and I found a lot of those type of sightings. Things that move just so incredibly fast. It's faster than any type of craft known to us. It's faster than a missile. They're faster than, of course, any type of animal. A whale isn't going to do that. They're just absolutely unknown, and they travel at a high rate of speed. I became friends before he passed away with Carl Feint. He and I got in a discussion about this. Carl believed that the electromagnetic field that's around this type of craft, which all of us investigators have dealt with the after effects or the effects of these electromagnetic fields around craft. And he believes that the craft never actually touched the water. So that's why these craft are coming in and out of our atmosphere without a sonic boom. That's why they're going through the water at a high rate of speed, because they're surrounded by this electromagnetic field, and the craft itself never does touch the water.
Okay, so there's not a huge splash. It's like it literally is pushing the water away from itself and just.
I believe, I believe so.
Crazy.
That's what Carl and I were discussing. That one of the reasons why travel underwater is something done at ease. You could see an aircraft. Still to this day, an aircraft at a high rate of speed going into the water is not going to be very friendly if it's something that we've built here on Earth.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you about the colors of lights, but first I just want to backtrack because I'm not clear. This might be a very stupid question, forgive me, but when you mentioned trenches, are we talking about anything man-made in shallow water or just natural trenches forming in the
There's natural trenches all across the world in the oceans. So there are a lot of natural underwater trenches.
Okay, yeah, I figured that's probably what it was. So I I bring this up all the time, but I'm obsessed with this idea. I'm trying to research it more when I read reports about uh, craft, the colors on the lights on the craft changing colors as they enter the water and as they come back out. I've read multiple stories, like maybe they were green and all of a sudden they went red as they went under and that kind of thing. And I just don't feel like it's a disco light show. I'm just wondering if you've been able to string any of that together, if you have any theories.
I don't know, except for the fact that I think once you enter the water, you lose with depth, you lose color. And so that might be maybe the color of the lights aren't actually changing, maybe because of depth of the water, you're not able to see the color as it actually is.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
know you
point.
lose red right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe it's not actually changing colors. Well, there goes
Right.
my whole theory. Thanks a lot. You have to be so
I don't
damn
know.
smart.
That's a scuba diver in me. I mean,
That's why you're here.
That brings me to, you mentioned color, that brings me to shape. I mean, this guy mentioned a triangular shape craft coming up. I mean, are your reports, are they heavy on like tic tac shapes, or does it run the gamut? I mean, do we see, just like in the sky, the ovals and the boomerang and that, or is it more one thing in specific?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I've seen a lot of the tic tacs, but then again, I found a lot of pictures of craft over water that were triangular shape, or even like the shape of the Aurora, which the Aurora was actually pretty close to the shape of the Roswell crash from 1947. So I don't think shape. The one thing about UFO sightings and locations is that everybody who tries to reason what's going on with all of this is categorizing everything under basically one definition. We know that we have, just as investigators, we know we have multiple races of aliens that are visiting. I know that depending on who you talk to, it could be anywhere from 10 to 160, depending on how. I think a lot of that depends on descriptions from how far back. If you go into the descriptions that are in the Bible of things that were seen in the sky. So if you got descriptions going back that far, descriptions from caves, from pictoglyphs that are in the pyramids, there are a lot of different descriptions of alien beings. So you could have one alien being that's entering their craft or triangle shape. Another one may be tic tac shape, or tic tac shape. You could have a diamond shape. I mean, just about
Right.
anything. Usually disc and kind of I guess like a shape of the Aurora, which was a craft that had a little winged up a little bit.
Right. I was just thinking like the aerodynamics underwater. Like I would think certain craft would travel more at ease underwater than others, but that's why I was surprised when that
water.
Right, right.
Yeah.
You said.
Yeah, if they're traveling with an electromagnetic field, I don't think the shape really matters, because all they have to do, if they want to, they can always elongate the shape of their electromagnetic field to however they want. They could have a craft that could be any shape, but
kind of like this, like a thing over the craft
right.
that could just kind of, that's interesting. I never thought of that.
I wish I could do that in traffic. Just
yeah, right.
out of my way.
More of a,
Well, okay, so we've mentioned TikTok a couple of times. By the way, let's hope the aliens never get into TikTok, because then we're like really in trouble. But the TikTok event,
that's time travel.
How exciting is it for you when a major event happens over water like this? Because this is your wheelhouse. I can imagine your phone just rings off the hook.
You would think, but a lot of the underwater is so deep that we haven't got to really research the areas. Like in Malibu, that whole anomaly there is about 1,500 feet deep. Recreational divers are limited to 130 feet. And then even the tech divers, you may go down 200-300 feet, be down there for about 20 minutes, and that's going to take you probably 4 hours in decompression to come back up. So and then it'd be so incredibly dark, you're not going to see a whole lot. So we try and research the best we can just by reports. I would love to have a mini sub that I could travel around underwater. But then again, if you get too close to something that's unidentified, how is that mini sub going to react? Am I going to be down there forever because it cuts out like a car does on the surface? That's another thing.
Oh, I never thought
I've
about that.
Yeah, that's a scary thought. I was gonna say, have Mark build you a sub, but no, that's a scary thought. I mean, wow. And speaking of that, like, what do you make of all the Antarctica, like under frozen water? I mean, what a perfect place to hide, because it is so difficult to, get down there and explore, right? Even with the best of our subs, when they were exploring the Titanic, it's such it costs millions of dollars. It's a perfect place to hide. And what do you think what's going on in Antarctica?
Oh, I think both poles, we've got something going on. It's a good place. Again, a good place to hide. There aren't a whole lot of people that go there. It's a very unfriendly atmosphere. That's why the Alaska. I've done a couple episodes of Alaska Triangle and there's so much that's going on there because of the cold. Very few people see it. You can have things just out in the open. You don't have to do a whole lot of hiding anything you're doing. They've got HARP there. There's three different HARP establishments just a little bit north of Ketchikan. I don't know why you need one, let alone three. So they're doing a lot of things right out in the open. There aren't a whole lot of people that are there to be able to report.
Yeah.
So of course, both of the poles, that's the way to go. I mean, you're limited. And then the North Pole is primarily being occupied by the Russians. We've got more of the South Pole that we've been putting up bases in. The Russians, it seems like they're expanding and expanding and expanding. I think if I was Canadian, I'd be just a little bit worried about how far down they're going to be coming toward my country.
Well, speaking of expanding, we focus so much on space and how far can we get looking for alien life? But, you mentioned just how freaking deep our ocean is, how much on our own planet is still undiscovered. And I'm just wondering if you're a fan of is it James Cameron, the big film director who's spending a lot of money and a lot of his own time, just trying to explore our own oceans in a way to better understand what might be going on, obviously, on other planets. I was just wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Be nice to have that much money to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's great that we do have somebody with that much interest because, I know he went down deep into one of the trenches. But you can't stay down for very long. Also, our planet is 70% Earth. So if you're going to use this as a hiding place, use it for a lot of different reasons, but hiding for one, 70% of our planet is water. 5%, in fact, less than 5% of our waterways have even been explored. So we don't really know what's going on down there. I just recently found a report where there's species of fish. The deeper and the deeper that we've had the capabilities to go, the more and more we're finding. So there's been species of fish that we didn't even know existed that are way, way down deep. I also I just grab everything that has to do with water. There's been things that have washed ashore that are giant, the giant squid. And they think this may have been something that came up from the deep way back in the early, 1800s, when you get these reports of these sea monsters. Reports of sea monsters go back centuries in the ocean. We don't know if there's something that didn't come up, from the deep ends of the water and then go back down. But some of the things that have washed ashore in various places are pretty incredible. And even the tales that go back. I mean, there's stories that go back centuries of strange things in the water. In fact, there's I think it was a 1980s that there were, and in fact, there have been several reports of it where there's 10-foot tall creatures that are under the water in Lake Baikal in Russia. And they've been seen by divers. They've been seen by submarine, and they're still there. So there are creatures that are possibly living on this planet underwater that we're not aware of because they're so deep. We just don't go down there, or we don't have the capabilities to go down there safely.
Yeah. Katie, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're so busy looking up, that I sometimes forget to ask that question: what's going on underneath our earth, underneath our oceans? Debbie, is there a difference between reports between like saltwater and freshwater and like lakes versus oceans, or are we seeing it everywhere?
I think we're seeing it everywhere. I don't think there's any I don't think there's any difference between ocean. We get as much activity. Lake Baikal is I believe the largest body of fresh water on the planet, and there's obviously a lot of sightings there. There's been sightings that have been going back for years. Here in Missouri, we have Clearwater Lake. Back in the 70s, there was a craft that was seen hovering over. In fact, the Clearwater Lake over Piedmont, Missouri, we still have sightings in that area. We have sightings in over a lot of our rivers. That's what my team right now is investigating, that were craft seen coming in and out of our rivers and out of our lakes, but primarily along our river lines, freshwater. But then you look over Puerto Rico off the ocean, just numerous amounts. I spoke a couple years ago. I spoke to Jorge Martin, who is the lead investigator in Puerto Rico. He said that above Ponce, that he has pictures, which are on his website, of a craft coming from what looked like a wormhole opening up and then going into the water. There's a lot of activity in around Ponce, which is central. It's central Puerto Rico, south central Puerto Rico. There's also Lake Cartagena, which is a freshwater lake, and there's craft that have been coming in and out of that lake. Actually, it's a polluted freshwater lake. There's I have a report in my book of a scientist that lived in the area and said that just for years she's watched craft coming in and out. So I don't think it makes any difference whether it's freshwater or it's saltwater, depending on what the purpose is for going in and out of the water. Maybe that is something that there is of their interest, but as for maybe their agenda. So let's say you've got a being that's come to this planet and they want to gather some type of wild, I guess fish or plankton or something. Well, it would depend on what they wanted for their research, whether or not it was saltwater or freshwater. But I think as far as the base, you would probably go to more the ocean because you've got deeper parts. If you're just trying to gather, which I believe they may be, or maybe some of these alien forms may be harvesting hydrogen. You can get, hydrogen H2O. Hydrogen's in our water. Maybe they're harvesting hydrogen. You can do that in a lake. So I think a lot of it has to do with the purpose. Like Shag Harbor, that craft came in and crashed into the water, then moved because it was detected. I don't know if that craft coming into the Shag Harbor area was even their agenda. They could have just had flying saucer, or I guess craft mechanical problems, and ended up in Earth and maybe didn't even want to be here.
Yeah, they might have tasted our water and said, let's get the heck out of here. It's not right. I don't like what these people are doing to their water supplies.
But I think there's a lot of different there's a lot of different agendas. There's a lot of different alien beings, and there's the analogy I like to give is that, let's just say, for instance, you've got only 5 different alien races that are visiting our planet, and you take every bit of information that you have, and they're all pieces of a puzzle, and you throw them in a box. Now you've got puzzles from 5 different puzzles in one box, and you're trying to make one picture out of them. That's what's so hard about trying to figure all of this out. We have to separate out. And how do you separate out the pieces to the puzzle, which are the answers to the questions, if you don't know where they're coming from? So you don't know who or what this is, and you're trying to gather up all this information from multiple sources and bring up some kind of rhyme or reason. It's making it very
Oh, yeah.
difficult.
Yeah, great
And then
analogy.
you're factoring in human perception.
Exactly.
We're having to just trust what someone is saying they saw, and that's based on everything they know that's in all the files in their brain. And I mean, I don't know in our lifetime how many answers we're going to get, but it's not going to stop us from looking. I'm curious with the more kind of still water scenarios. Obviously on Earth, we know how often if a craft lands in somebody's property, there's no grass is going to grow, for a couple of years in that spot and that kind of thing. I'm just wondering, obviously not in the case of the ocean, but, in these smaller like ponds or lakes, if there's some leftover effects that you can measure.
Well, I know Shag Harbor, there was a yellow substance that was floating on the top of the water. I don't know if anybody ever gathered any of that up. You'd have to ask Chris Stiles about that. But I know that UFO investigators didn't save any of the samples. Our military might have. As far as in the water, it's hard to tell. What I tell my divers, because I am the director of underwater research and recovery for MUFON, and what I tell them is if we go to a body of water and there's dead fish, there's something dead on the bank, better than to go in and try and do any kind of a research project, any kind of research in that. As far as I know, I don't know of anything that has died in the water in a massive amount due to the UFO activity. I know there's been residue, but especially you would think around the Puerto Rico area with as much that's going around there that there would be something. And the water is beautiful and crystal clear. I've dove Puerto Rico a couple different times. So I don't think it's affecting the water. Maybe not anything that we can see. Maybe anything that we can detect. Maybe it is to some point. We just haven't realized it yet.
Sure.
I keep thinking about, you mentioned rivers, and I'm thinking, wow, like rivers are pretty shallow. Like I don't see craft going in and out of that. Have there been like UFO reports where UFOs are coming over and sucking up water? Are they using our water for something? Are they taking our water? Do you know of any reports like that?
I found one of my reports. There's so many of in the book that I'm sorry, I don't remember all the dates exactly. I believe it might have been 1986. It was a report in Puerto Rico where there was a fisherman that saw this craft enter the water, and he was a snorkel fisherman. He wasn't a diver. He went diving down, but he just went snorkeling down. And he snorkeled down 25 foot, saw this craft, sat on top of it. He said it was filtering something from underneath and filtering it and then expelling it out the top of the craft. And he came up for some air and then he went down again and he was sitting on this. And then he said it started to get hot and started to vibrate. So he hurried up and swam to the surface again and toward a little island, and it came out of the water and then shot off into the air at a high rate of speed. So I just thought this guy was great. He just decided, oh, there's a craft. I'm going to go sit on it underwater. That was fantastic. I know there was, there was one, it was called Maury Island, I believe, where there was a craft that was dropping something that was like molten lava. It was something melted. That I know that when that came down from a craft, there was obviously some kind of a problem with the craft, that it fell on, I believe that was a gentleman and his, I think he had his son with him. I know it killed his dog. Some of this fell on him. So that is one instance where something did fall actually out of a craft into the water.
Yeah.
Okay, killed a dog. That ain't cool. That's where I draw the line. Not cool.
I know, and they buried it there. They just
Was that the same? Was that the same case where they picked up that slag and then put it on the airplane? The airplane crashed.
Right. Yeah, that's in my book that they put some of that other that the aircraft crashed later. The only people that died were the two investigators. And they said that when they went to parachute out of the plane, that the wing had come off. And I mean, they didn't survive. I thought that was pretty odd. Yeah, that whole story is in my book about that. So not only did you have the sighting, but the people that investigated it died.
Yeah.
That's sad. I've got a copy of your book. Let's see. It's huge. It's so awesome. It's a massive book. I can't wait to get all the way through this. I was starting to look through it, and one story that really caught my eye was you were on a cruise ship. I'm going on a cruise in a couple of weeks, so I was thinking about you. I was like, I got to get some tips, on what I should be looking out for. You've been on multiple cruises, but you've managed to catch a few really cool things off the side of the boat. Can you tell us about that?
I've been on 9 cruises. This one in particular, I think it was our second cruise. It was January, I believe it was January 25th, 2006. We were on Explore the Seas, which Royal Caribbean. At 6:00, we left St. Martin and we were heading towards St. Thomas. So I'm the kind of person, one of those that you see on the cruise ships that when we come into dock, I'm snapping the pictures. When we leave dock, I'm snapping the pictures. I'm one of the ones waving at everybody. So I'm out there with a camera, just snapping pictures as we leave. And then I wanted to meet up with the rest of our group. So as the ship came out, we couldn't see land anymore. And so I thought, well, okay, it's time to go up and meet with the rest of my group. And I'm walking along the right side of the ship, which would walking along the right side of the ship, and I'm looking over the edge of the railing, and then I as I looked out into the ocean, I thought, well, what is that? And I still had my camera in hand, and there were, at the time I only saw, there were 2 disc shapes that, you could see them there. It was just the oddest thing. Now, the railing, there wasn't any plexiglass on that railing. And if you look down to the bottom of the picture, you can see where the plexiglass is. It's a total different color. So I'm walking along this railing and I thought, well, what is that? And they were kind of, they were hovering, but they were kind of moving back and forth, almost like in a mini circle, and then tilting, back and forth, like they were rocking back and forth and just hovering, but not hovering still. And so I grabbed a quick picture. Well, I physically saw these. This isn't something that I saw later on in my camera afterwards, because it definitely wasn't a reflection. At first I thought, well, is there something on the ship that's reflecting into the water and moving to do that? But that's pretty far away. And I looked up and, well, there wasn't anything. So we're moving and these things are hovering. So I took off running toward the back of the ship as fast as I could. And I ended up underneath lifeboats and then finally made my way through. And I'm trying to make my way around people. And I snapped one more picture that was only the one on the left-hand side, but it was through plexiglass and blurry. So I thought about this. I thought, what in the world? Well, that was it. I didn't see him anymore. And I had already been on Explore the Seas before. Since then, I've been on 7 other cruises, but I've never been able to duplicate that. After that, too, every night I was going out at the same time and thinking, this can't be anything off of the ship. I physically saw these. I asked one of the ship's stewards, well, do you throw like giant frisbees, or is that entertainment? Because it was only my second cruise. Is that entertainment for the guests that you've got something out there hovering? And they said, no, we don't do that. And I said, could that be some kind of lights from a mini sub? And he said, they don't come out this far. I could not duplicate that. And no matter what I did, I got on every single deck trying to look up at lights, finding if there, trying to see if there was anything. The closest I came was there were some lights that were near the lifeboats, but there were a lot of lights, not just the 2. And then later on, when I looked at the picture, it looked like there's a third one up in the clouds. I also asked them if they could have thrown anything off. They said it's illegal to throw anything off of the ship. So I have no idea what it was. This was back in 2006. And surprisingly, I forgot about it for a lot of years. I was just obsessed with this through the whole rest of the cruise. People thought I was a little bit out of my mind. Oh, everybody's drinking on this cruise ship. Well, no, camera proves it all. I physically saw these. And then what's funny is that when Margie Kay, my editor, gave me the cover for the book, it almost looks exactly like what I had seen, and she hadn't seen the picture. Since then, there's also another picture in one of the MUFON sightings. A witness had one of those. They saw it after the fact, but then I have one of our field investigators, Don Dixon. He said that he had a family member that went to, I believe it was Ireland, about 5 years ago, and that they took a picture of a couple, the same looking craft, over a lake. I've looked at a lot of pictures of UFOs and things floating over the water, and there are a lot of sightings of what look like what I saw. These were about the size, I'd say about a car, judging from how far away. They were at least the size of a car or a pickup truck. They were pretty good size, and they weren't just stationary. They were rocking back and forth like this and doing that. Just
Well, thank you for clarifying that. I mean, I'll be honest, when I saw this picture, I thought, well, it has to be lights from inside. It
Yeah.
looks like it's being taken through a window and it's some kind of can light. And I thought, well, easy, right? But then you explained seeing it, with the window not there. And I'm sure if there were anything overhead, shining a spotlight down, you would have seen that or heard that. Yeah,
Well,
very.
it would have followed along with the ship. They were there in the water, doing this and going back and forth, and the ship is moving away from them, and I'm running as fast as I can toward the back of the ship, trying to catch more pictures before we were out of sight. So if
Right.
it was a reflection, it would have stayed with the
Yeah,
ship.
it would have moved. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. It would have moved with you. Yeah, that's
So
wild.
I just couldn't. I mean, that was 2006. I became an investigator in 2001. And that kind of threw me a little bit. I didn't expect on my second cruise ever to see something in the water. I think this was before I did as much research. That probably too sparked a lot more interest in the water than it had before, especially seeing something. And if you go to the MUFON website, there are a lot of sightings that are people who have had sightings that are reported from cruise ships. I've got all those in my book, as many as I could find.
I think I'm going to take your book with me on the cruise, and I'm going to be
Good idea.
glued to that back deck the whole time, just watching. And yeah,
Well-
and that really is pretty lucky to be just a few years into, officially investigating and have a sighting like that. Many people go 20 years and see nothing, despite
right.
trying.
Especially over water. Now too, the MUFON cruise. I went on the MUFON cruise in, I believe it was 2018, and our tour guide actually had a sighting and told us about it, I thought that was great. So you go on a MUFON cruise, you go to Cozumel, and the tour guide says, "Oh yeah, right over there is where we had this craft." He said, "It was about 20 years ago. It was a silver metallic disc, came up out of the water and just followed me home, maybe about 3-4 miles, followed him along the shoreline until he lost sight of it in the mango trees." I thought that was great.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, I want to ask you this because, I mean, obviously, you don't have to be military to be a credible witness to a UFO sighting. But I just think you must get a lot of reports from military people, Navy people, just the nature of being out there in the middle of the ocean and seeing these kinds of things. And that must help a lot when you're looking through a case, just knowing that you're dealing with somebody that's very good at identifying, what could be man-made, I would think, right?
MUFON has received several reports from people that have retired, and they're starting to tell us about sightings they had while they were on ships. And I think a lot of this is coming out more, especially with last year with the Navy releasing the video from the Nimitz in 2004, and then we had the other ones, and I believe it was January 21st, 2015. There were some two videos. They believe it might have been the same thing, and that was on the Atlantic Ocean. So we have our government that's actually coming forward now and saying, okay, the Navy is spotting this and this. You mentioned Tucker Carlson. He's had one of the pilots on there talking about what he saw. What if you listen closely, though, they didn't see just one. I believe it was the one with the Nimitz. They said there was a fleet over top. And you have to listen really close to catch that. And there was something else too, that everything that I hear about that has to do with water, it just draws me to it. I was listening to, well, the one thing about my book is that I'm talking about it's the alien colonization of Earth's waterways. I don't believe they're visiting. We're referring to these beings as visitors. They've been here for a long time. I believe they're still here. I believe they're in places underwater. They might be in caves. They might be deep in mountains. There are some, I believe, that are coming back and forth, but it just seems funny to me that somebody would travel light years or through wormholes and come over and visit for a little bit and then go on back home. You know, if you're here for a couple weeks and you settle in someplace, technically you're a resident. So, and the more I started researching this for the book, the more it set me back a little bit. I thought, that's when I changed the name of the book to the alien colonization of Earth's waterways, because I think we've been colonized and most of us don't want to admit it. And then about a week ago, I was listening to Lou Elizondo. He was in the UK talking about some of the sightings that had been released by the Navy. And toward the end, he made mention of the same thing. He said, you know, our oceans are very deep and there's a lot of fish life and creatures that are down very, very deep that we haven't seen, that we don't know, that we're still finding to this day. And he said, you know, where our technology is picking up things that it couldn't before, and maybe some of what we've seen aren't necessarily visitors, but something that our technology is just now being able to detect, to pick up, to view. Right. And I thought, that's pretty interesting coming from Lou Elizondo.
Yeah, a couple things here. First of all, some of these new fish species that they're finding deep in our oceans are so alien-like to begin with, you know, the lighting they have. So that's really cool and interesting. Secondly, shout out to Dave McDonald here. Let's get on another MUFON cruise here, because what? I didn't even know we did that. So when is that going to happen again?
I believe
interestingly, yeah.
They're booking now. They're booking now for a MUFON cruise. I got a notice.
Oh, wow.
So they're trying to get one together now.
Oh, cool. All right.
We need to be on that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have to check that out. Interestingly enough, though, Debbie, I was listening to Linda Moulton Howe's last Wednesday. She did a 2-hour podcast on her Earth Files, and they were talking about that, you know, underground and underwater, and how, just like Linda, she believes, I mean, just like you, Linda believes that, you know, they've been here for millions of years, you know, and they're just under our oceans and under caverns and under Antarctica and that. So, you know, again, I'm always looking up and thinking they're just coming in, grabbing a Coca-Cola and leaving. But, you know, maybe you're right with that, you know. So,
yeah, I know it's a scary thought. That's why in the book, it's a reference book. So I talk about some of the things, our capabilities and how far back they've been. Most people don't know that we had a submarine, that the Confederate Army had a submarine, you know, during the Civil War, that is Jacques Cousteau. That's the third generation of people that have been underwater now. The grandson's underwater. There's a laboratory, I believe about 60 feet off the Florida Keys. There's, we have underwater bases, our submarine bases. We have underwater, I know the Chinese, the Russians, we have underwater submarine bases. And this is something that we have talked about developing in documents that I found on in the MUFON archives back from, I believe, 1968. I saw one. So we've been underwater, but to what extent? And, you know, that's what we have to figure out. We know that what our capabilities. So in the book, I talk about what our capabilities are, what I found, and how far back we had been underwater, that we've had access, how deep we can go, where the deep places are. And then you can use your own judgment. You can say, you know what? We weren't capable of coming in and out of the water, and we still, I don't believe, are capable of coming in and out of the water at a high rate of speed, traveling around underwater, coming back out, then going off into the atmosphere, unless there's something that somebody's got that we don't know about.
Yeah, I don't think we've got that yet. Well, I mean, you've spent a lot of time underwater looking for things, so I'm dying to know what is the most unusual, interesting thing that you have found.
Underwater, the most unusual. I did some treasure diving, but I don't know. I found some old nails, ballast stones. What I took my grandson diving, and the most interesting thing that he found was we found a pop top. He's 15 years old, and we were using a metal detector, and he said, "What's a pop top?" So,
Wow.
I mean, you think about it, we know, but the kids don't realize. I mean, it still had the little flip on it in the ring,
Yeah.
and he goes,
Yeah.
"What is that?" So recently, that's the most interesting thing. I found an old ring, some keys, nothing, nothing really, nothing alien, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't sound like
But
anything from off world.
Right.
no, I think the
It's a good.
ballast stones were the most exciting because I could see where it was an old ship that had gone down off of the Florida Keys, and I don't remember the name of it at the time, but there was a fleet of them, a dozen or so, and we got I think it was the El Infante is what it was, and we found the large ballast stones in a pile, and that was about it. Some of the lumber, but no gold coins. Darn.
Keep
Gotta find it.
looking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got to find that Atlantis. That report, speaking of the Navy reports and that, I mean, they were saying, they're spotting these things flying around our ships almost daily, which
Mhm.
was shocking to hear. Like, daily? What? So wow. Are you kind of keeping an eye on that, keeping track of that? I mean, how can we pursue this further? If they're seeing them this often, what can we do to, get in there and figure this out?
Well, I guess we have we have our government now is finally releasing things, and we've got Senator Gillibrand, I believe, that
Mhm.
she's introduced an amendment to have an office there in Washington D.C. for the study. She's got a bill for this. This office will be for the study of UFOs.
Yeah.
So at least we've got somebody that's going forward with this. Senator Marco Rubio has been working on this, and then we have Senator Harry Reid. So I think we have to, as Americans, maybe as Earthlings, not necessarily just Americans, because if you go to places like Puerto Rico and Brazil, Mexico, they openly talk about this on the news, and it's not something that can be hidden anymore. We have too many of the public going into space. So this isn't something that can be kept. The secret can't be kept anymore. We're actually, how would I put this? Once you get the public into space, the government can't keep the secret anymore. I mean, but for goodness sake, we had Captain Kirk going to space. I just loved that. I went and bought the T-shirt and everything. I loved Shatner going to space. 90 years old. God love the man.
That's great.
I agree. I think
great.
Yeah,
you
I
just
agree.
nailed it there. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
how long can they keep secrets from us when we are now, we have the capability, I mean, even the telescopes that we can buy, the cameras we
Right.
can buy, it won't be that long before we can go so much deeper under the water ourselves,
That's true.
and yeah, the public going into space is tourists now. I just don't know that we can have things hidden from us too much longer, because we're getting out there with or without our governments. So I think
I agree.
that is a really good point, and maybe a really good positive thing to wrap it up on.
Yeah,
We can do
absolutely.
this. We can find the
You're right.
truth.
They can't hide it from us
cameras.
forever. Ah.
I've got a video camera right now that's it's not infrared, it's military night vision. And this camera, the research we're doing, we took it out in a UFO investigation and found out I was picking up aircraft 120 plus miles away.
Wow.
And we
There you
filtered
go.
out from that. So we're using that and Flight Radar 24 and different things. But this camera can pick up a light spectrum that our eyes cannot. And I think that's the key to it. We've got the technology now that if we're a serious investigator, the technology is out there to assist us. And we're going to open up a lot of the secrets. We're opening up the Pandora's box.
I agree.
That's
I agree.
right.
And MUFON is right at the
That is
forerunners
right.
at this.
Yeah, everybody out there, report what you see to MUFON for sure. Debbie,
Absolutely.
you have been a fantastic guest, and I just love this topic, and I love your expertise in this topic. Thank you so much for being here today. I truly appreciate it. I think you're just awesome, and the work you do is incredible. So keep on going with that.
Thank you for having me. I'm a little raspy. I've had a cold for a couple weeks, but
you sound sexy, darling.
Yeah, you sound great.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Of course. And thank you, Katie, as always. And congratulations to Chris. Enjoy that and love on that little new baby. Oh, I'm so excited for Chris. Thank you to Bill Skywatcher and assistant producer Amanda Curran. This has been a great show. I hope you can join us next week, next Thursday night. And we'll see you then. And don't forget to report everything to MUFON. Get involved and join. So thank you. Great show, everybody. See you next week.